Ah,
Hey,
hey.
how's it going, man?
Good, dude. Long time.
Yeah, long time. Long time.
Yeah.
It's great to see you.
Yeah, sorry I didn't get your message. I haven't been on Facebook in like 2 to 3 years, and I didn't know. I was looking for someone to fix my Game Boy before I went on this next project. And someone told me Facebook Marketplace, and then I was like, "You have messages." And it was a whole bunch of people that I'd been ignoring for like that thought I just ghosted them for like 3 years.
That's all right. I
Wait, you're
completely did not
contacting
think
people
that.
through Facebook?
Well, they have that
What?
Facebook message thing, right? And
Yeah,
like
I've
I
just been
didn't
like, but
know.
how old are you, Will? Contact them through Instagram like a normal person.
Well,
Well, that's what I told
I
them.
I
I said
did.
find me on
We were
Instagram. I
friends
still
on
have that.
Facebook. I thought that would work.
Oh my God.
Thought I'd been ghosted, but
Jesus.
hey, excellent. I'm super. Well,
Sorry
it
about
doesn't
it.
matter. We are super happy to have you here with us, Ian, to talk
Hmm?
about Teen Wolf, your favorite show. So, all right. Well, we know you've got family stuff to get to, so we will jump right in. Ian, how did you get into TV writing?
I always grew up loving TV,
Mhm.
and I started in like 2005 or six, moved out to LA, and I swear to God, this is hard to believe, but TV wasn't like prestigious or like
Hmm.
popular back then. It was like, the dregs of writers went out to work in television. And my buddies and I from NYU, we were big TV watchers, and we all were passionate about it. And our professors advised us to stay and write movies, but turns out we were right. Um, and I had started came out to LA, and I had a gig as Robert Zemeckis's PA, which I found on it was a job posting board back then called the UTA job list. And that was just a year of, picking up his mail and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I also wasn't really I love Zemeckis. His movies are amazing. But it wasn't really I wanted to be in TV. And then I found another gig as an assistant at the Sci-Fi Channel, where I was a big fan of their stuff. Battlestar was going on, and Eureka, and I stayed there answering phones again for about a year, doing some other stuff, and then they picked up a pilot that I had worked on called Warehouse 13, and I wanted to staff on that. And I was the writer's assistant the first year. I wrote an episode the first year, and then I did that for 5 years. And that's my story. And it just seems like, because it's TV, such a prestigious big industry now, people want a much more interesting story than dude shows up at the right place at the right time and they're looking for TV writers. I mean,
I got
it,
you.
it was it was a simpler time. I don't know what to tell people. I
Hey, I
just
mean,
kind of was just there, and I just started writing television.
hey, there is nothing wrong with that. I answered an ad on a job list as well, and that's what led me to Teen Wolf. So
Yeah.
that's just how it works. So okay, well then how did Warehouse 13 end up with how did Warehouse 13 turn into Teen Wolf?
Well, first of all, just Will was there, and I have like horrible memory. So Will, just like correct me for the rest of this thing if
Okay.
I forget if I got anything wrong. Because
Just
here's like
like gaslight him into believing it was a great experience for him.
Yeah.
here's my memory of Teen Wolf. How I got that gig was Warehouse 13 was in its fifth season, and they told us this was going to be the last season, or we thought it was going to be the last
Mhm.
season. And so I didn't have an agent, but a friend of mine who had worked at Zemeckis was now an agent. And so I was like, hey, I guess I need to find a new job. And she had, she said, great, we're looking, there's a lot of genre shows. And she mentioned Teen Wolf. And I had watched Teen Wolf every summer. I was in Toronto shooting Warehouse 13.
Mhm.
And it was
Mhm.
Teen Wolf was on a channel called Much Music, which I guess is their MTV.
Okay.
And I thought it was a Canadian show
Oh, okay.
because because it was it was the first two seasons were in Atlanta, which you could easily mistake for Vancouver or Toronto. And I again, I'm not that, I have no idea what's going on ever in entertainment. Always just tell me where to go. Um, So I was like, oh, I've actually seen that show because they'd mentioned some other stuff, and I was like, all right. And so, to the best of my knowledge, I just drove up to Northridge on my lunch break and walked in and met with, I guess, either Christian and Jeff or Jeff and Christian, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that prepared. I didn't know much about, I didn't have everything about the show memorized, but I did, what I liked about the show was, hold on one second while it's the dog.
Yeah, no worries.
Jeff had sort of pitched me that one of his influences was The Lost Boys. And that was one of my favorite movies growing up. And I really liked what I saw on it. And, I think it was kind of marketed as a Twilight Vampire Diaries type show. And he had kind of twisted that around to do whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
And it worked. And so, I was like, well, call me if you want to hire me. And then Warehouse 13 got canceled at like 4 p.m. on a Thursday, I remember, like 2 weeks later. And then like an hour later, they called me about that gig. And I was like, well, I guess I'm taking that job. So like,
maximum enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Well, I just remember it was like, I'd been at Warehouse 13 for like 5 years. It was my first TV show. And like, it was crazy that it was like, wow, it's over. And then I have to start a new TV show the next week. And I was very young. I think I was, 25 when I started on Warehouse 13. And it just never occurred to me that it wasn't going to last forever. Much like, in your 20s, you're immortal. Everything's and then, going to Teen Wolf, it was like, wow, I'm going to be doing show to show for the rest of my life, which was a revelation. But and we started, Jeff sent me the scripts for a bunch of season 3 that I had already started. And then I hit the ground running like that Monday or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Will was there. You were a writer's assistant?
Yeah, I was a writer's assistant that time. Yeah.
Yeah, I always remember Will being there.
That's all of our memories of Will, just always being there.
Always there. Well, someone had to look after Nibbles while the important stuff was happening. So
well, I found Nibbler. Yeah, that dog's still alive, by the way, man.
That's awesome. Love that. Love that little boy.
I did wonder, but I didn't want to ask in case.
I know. I was.
Oh,
there he is.
Zach LaCroix cans. He it's I got 3 kids now, man. I still got this dog, and he won't call it quits.
Hey, that's all right. He was a good one. He was a good one.
Here's a funny Teen Wolf story. So my favorite, I'm not very active on the internet, the TV writer, blogs, whatever. But my picture on the Marvel Cinematic Universe Wikipedia page, I don't know who took this. I don't know where it's from. It's just a picture of me with Nibbler in my shirt looking at Jeff's giant projection board, just encapsulating every feeling I had about like, oh God, more writing to do.
I might have taken that picture.
I think you might have, but somehow I don't even know
that picture.
It's on the Marvel Cinematic Universe Wikipedia page.
Okay. Well, have you been moonlighting on that wiki?
No, definitely not.
But it's my favorite picture of myself online.
Nice. Well, fantastic.
We should link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Oh yeah, that picture's great. I'm looking at it right now.
It's like is he wearing like the red hoodie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my outfit.
Yeah. My abiding memory, I have many abiding memories of Teen Wolf, but one of them is when I was the assistant, was keeping an eye on Nibbler and then seeing if he started to do that little backup dance, which means it's time to poop. And then Jeff would be in the middle of something and they'd be pitching ideas and you hear me go, Nibbler, Nibbler. And I have to run over there and pick him up. And yeah, it was awesome.
It sounds abusive when you put it that way, but we were a dysfunctional family over there.
Hey, I'm not complaining. I was in a writer's room with awesome people and a cute little dog. So, and there was another dog too that was probably going to murder Nibbler at some point, but that never happened. But because Nibbler is like this big, and then was it? No, not Felix. Oh crap. What was Damon? Oh man,
the Jocko or something.
Jocko, yes. And Damon's beautiful pit bull, and Nibbler was like, "I want to play with you forever." And by play with you, I mean bite you, because I want to play. And it's like he's gonna murder you, little boy. Never happened though. So, but it was adorable.
It's so fascinating for me hearing stories about Nibbler doing that, because when we were house sitting and babysitting Nibbler, he was just a despondent lump
Oh yeah,
the
absolutely.
whole time. So when I hear stories about him, like, oh, he's so playful and stuff, I'm like, wow, really? That dog?
Well, that's
It
because
was like his air got deflated.
yeah, the only
when
person
Ian
in the
wasn't
world
there.
who matters to Nibbler is Ian.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah.
he gets along with the kids now.
Oh, wonderful.
Catherine, he's pretty. My wife, he's pretty. He's still awful. He still barks all the time.
Hey, whatever. Hey,
I can't believe he's still here. But yeah, I picked him up one night we were doing Teen Wolf, right? Like in the middle of it was before, like I was like
oh God, I don't
been there
remember.
for like a couple of months, and my neighbor said he found a dog. My friend said he found a dog under his car, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm taking this dog. Like I
Yeah.
just need something in my life after work.
Aw.
The hours on the show are insane. I'm
Sweet.
getting a dog, and this is
Yeah.
the dog. He was
That's the dog.
awful.
By awful, you mean perfect and awful.
Yeah.
But it's all good. It's all good.
Do you have a
Mhm.
favorite line or scene that you contributed to the show that you remember? I know it's been a while.
I do think, but there is like, of everything I've been a part of, I don't think it's in an episode that, I mean, you know how it worked with. Eventually, we had so much writing to do on this show, and it was like 24 episodes a year ish, or something like that, and we're always behind, and it would just turn into, and Will, if this is the way I remember it, is it was just Jeff and I just improvising and acting out scenes in the writer's room or the gym while Will had to type furiously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
And-
yeah.
And my favorite scene like that, it must be in season 4. It's where Malia doesn't want to do algebra class, and Styles is telling her why math is important, and the
Yeah.
only reason he has because it's how you figure out how much to tip at restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, and then Jeff jumps in as Lydia, and he's like, well, there's engineering and economics. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but it's mostly so you know how much to tip at restaurants. And that's one of my favorite scenes.
It's great.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I think about a lot is because I mean, again, the way we did it, it was like, it was us just talking, acting out these scenes in character in a way that was seems unprofessional. And it probably was. But like there's the one where Jeff had this thing that Styles couldn't read after they woke up the magic tree, I forget what it was called.
The Nimbleton.
Magic tree.
They all went through effects, and he wanted Styles to have he lost the ability to read.
Right.
And and we didn't know how it was going to pay off. And it was like a 1 to 2 episode thing. And I remember I wanted to do this thing with a bear trap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lydia, my pitch was Lydia would step in it, and Styles would have to figure out how to turn it off, and he had to figure out how to read the instructions on the side. And Jeff said, why would the instructions be on the side of a bear trap? And I said, because bears can't read. And then Lydia just says that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just, I was like, why? Yeah, anyway.
I love
There's
that.
always little moments like that came out of us genuinely talking. And the characters were always so much fun to stick your head into. And I mean, there's just so many of those little moments. But yeah, it was a gauntlet, that show. There's a lot of good. I watched to try to remember what it was. I remember I was still trying to find the show online. We have a million apps.
Yeah.
I
I
thought
think
it was
it's
on
on
Paramount.
It's on
Now
Paramount,
it's on
I think.
Hulu. I found
Yeah,
it on Hulu.
it is on Hulu. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one, The Benefactor was the episode I watched. So I remember that being a good one. And it holds up.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, one of Jeff's pitches, and I think he was ahead of his time on this, was making sure that the show was a bit of a timeless quality to it, in that we weren't going to do a lot of pop culture references. Obviously we use cell phones, but it wasn't like, it was to service the story and stuff like that. So it all still feels pretty, it holds up in a way that a lot of the teen shows from that era probably don't.
Yeah.
I mean, now everyone just does period pieces because they're lazy, because no one knows what teenagers are doing. But
Euphoria says they're fucking all over the place while doing drugs.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one. That one sounds raunchy to me.
Euphoria, it's fun.
I believe you, but I have 3 kids. We barely watch anything anymore. It took me a little while, like a weeks, to find time to watch one episode of Teen Wolf. Watched a lot of Bluey and Muppet Babies. That's what's going on now.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go. After One Piece, you can transition over to Bluey. So
I wish. Dream job.
Well, so what was a typical day like in the writer's room?
I mean, you tell me, Will. It was fucking bananas. We were like, I mean, you know, we were behind before we started, and we could roll in at 10 a.m. or if we were up shooting until 2 a.m. the previous night, sometimes we'd push it to 11.
Yeah.
And just try to, you know, get in there and cram as many ideas or pages as we could, try to figure out what was coming up, and then Jeff only liked to eat California Chicken Cafe. That was his.
He ate a lot of that.
Eat a lot of California Chicken Cafe for lunch, and then you'd be there. You know, it was like if you ever, I mean, it just sounds insane because it was Teen Wolf, but it was basically the way it was set up. It was like there was zero accountability. No TV show is going to run like this anymore. We had basically a factory, converted speaker factory up in Northridge. We had no executive oversight other than here's your budget, here are the dates episodes need to be on. And other than VFX, we had editors up there. We had the hospital set. We can't talk loudly if they're shooting next door to us in the hospital. Everything was up there, and it was just like it was its own campus. And as long as the episodes were coming in, nobody cared what we were doing or how we were doing it. And it was just complete chaos and anarchy, and you just were working, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, who knows. But you know, you had to, it was a once in a lifetime thing. They don't do TV like that no more. And I remember one day, like driving back at like 3 a.m., listening to Bill Hader on some NPR podcast, talking about the grueling schedule of Saturday Night Live. And I was like, that sounds so much easier than this show. I was like, I'm on Teen Wolf. That guy's on Saturday Night Live and he works less than I do. But you know, it was grueling, but it was rewarding too. And there's a lot of great, everyone had the let's make a picture spirit that, you know, you see in the Muppet Show. There was very little, you know, nowadays you have to deal with executives. There's a lot of creative and you know, but it was just us trying to put on this show every day and hoping it all kind of gelled together in the end. You know, the flying without a net thing is a little intoxicating at a time, but it sounds so terrifying to me now at my age. You know, I mean, there's this whole, and I'm not denigrating Jeff, there's this whole myth, you know, ever since once TV kind of blew up, that like the showrunners have the 5-season plan and know what's going to happen. Like, it's all bullshit. I don't care which showrunner saying that. You have no idea what's going to go on there until you sit down. And then this one was even tougher just because our network style schedule wasn't the same as what people are used to on cable or streaming now, where you have more development time, more writing time. This was, you know, 6 weeks to camera every time if we were lucky. So yeah. And Jeff had grand ambitions for what he wanted the show to be, and it was respect it, but it was not an easy one to write, which sounds insane because again, we are talking about Teen Wolf. Which should be, it sounds like a walk in the park. But it was definitely the toughest show I ever worked on.
All right.
You have a favorite episode of the show?
You know which one I like a lot, and is only the finale of what season was the Nogitsune?
Season 3, 3B.
Because I mean, again, we were crushed. We had days before this finale is due, and we have a lot of ideas. We don't know what we're doing, and I remember Jeff kept wanting scenes with the Nogitsune was playing Go
Mhm.
with Styles,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
he was talking about that again, and I remember sitting there and being like, "Does anyone here know what Go is? Like the rules of Go?" And like even Jeff, we were like, "No, we don't know anything about Go." So we're all sitting there at the screen on the Wikipedia for Go, and like there was this part of the article about the divine move, which is this 1 in a million move in Go that, and we just love the name, and we were like, well, there's the title. And we're like, and there's the whole thing. It's about the 1 in a million shot that'll win this. And it all came together very rapidly and fast, but I remember that one really paying off and working. And I really love the song that Laura Webb, our music supervisor, picked at the end of it. Because it was my first season, and it felt like, oh, we finally reached the end of the movie, because the pace had just gotten so relentless that season. When I remember staying up all night and shooting, like it was like the week before Christmas, like we had to have this thing done. And like I had a flight at like the next day at like 4 p.m. that I missed because we were shooting until like 10 a.m. the next morning,
Yeah.
double overtime.
Ooh.
And then we got 2 weeks off for Christmas. I had to
Yeah.
come back because we had 8 weeks season 4 started shooting. So I don't know why we were celebrating anything.
Yeah, that was the time when we were like, hey, we're all getting a vacation, and then MTV was like, or you keep going, and we roll right into the next season. It's like, oh, great.
Yeah, that was horrible. But that episode had so much going on, and for all the craziness of that season, we somehow managed to tie as much of it together as we could in Teen Wolf. And with Allison dying and everything, there was a lot of strong emotion, and the final fights were awesome, and it was that's a good one.
Yeah.
The Benefactor, the only one I watched last night, was pretty good too. So let me throw that on the list. That was fun. But yeah, those are, I mean, mostly it's, again, the episodes are hard to keep track of in my head. Because again, I also we were working so much, I never even watched the show on TV until like because we'd be working Monday night at 10 when the show was airing most of the time. I remember the first time I actually saw it on MTV. I don't know what season it was, but I never know that like MTV had it was like CNN. They had like a bar all at the bottom, and Twitter and it was like
the
our
hashtags.
show within like 3/4 of the screen, and I'm like, we work so hard on this show, and like this is how it looks on TV. I was just blown away.
Yeah.
But whatever, it was working for them. We were always they were always happy with how we were doing on Twitter and social media, and this is how kids watch TV nowadays.
Yeah. Well, that's why I always bought it on iTunes, because I watched like the first couple of seasons, and then they started doing all that nonsense, and I was like, I can't, this is too much. I just bought it on iTunes and never watched MTV again.
I never, I mean, I guess I just watched final cuts of things, or we sometimes would show it at his house or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't remember when we did that. But yeah. So those ones stand out from what I remember.
Excellent.
Yeah, they're good ones.
They're good
Yeah.
ones.
Who is your favorite character to write for? Was it Styles? You were the Styles and he was Olivia?
Objection, leading the witness.
I always liked, I love Shelley. Malia was great. I think that was a character that I had kind of wanted to push. In season 3, I really liked, I think I came up with the idea that like there was an episode where Styles goes to the insane asylum. I don't know what you call it anymore, but like and we were Malia there because she was in those other 2 episodes, and I had this idea like, what if she wanted to go back to being, she was a coyote, right?
Mhm.
A werecoyote?
Yeah.
And she was just such a different character once we kind of cracked that. And Shelley was just so great because any funny thing I wrote, she could nail 100% of the time. And when we came back in season 4, adding her to the dynamic just helped immensely with everything, because now we had another superhero, and there was a little less the relation to her and Styles, a lot of fun to write. But the whole cast was great. I mean, I will say, I really loved writing Scott. I really like writing strong heroes. I never gelled with the whole anti-hero thing that was really taking off the last I don't know, decade. Seems like it's over now. Because I believe that it's harder to be a good guy than it is to be a bad guy. You have to make tougher choices. You have more to lose. And Posey was just so good at what he did. And for being sometimes I felt like he had just read the sides on the drive-in in the morning. But I mean, I don't blame him. The script probably came out like a day or two earlier or something. Or if you gave him a change, he would just nail it every time. And he never complained. He loved every day being there. And he could play the superhero thing well when Scott became that alpha, and he loved being a werewolf, never complained about the makeup or anything. And there are moments, I'm thinking there was this girl and she wrapped a laser sword around Scott's neck.
Yes.
In the locker room,
yeah,
or a laser, whatever. And I just remember him like doing this cool thing where he grabs it and then rips it off. It just looks, and he just had the emotion all on his face. I just thought he was such a fun hero to write for. And I mean, again, every TV show I've been on, the entire mood falls on who's number one on the call sheet. And he was just the alpha of the show. He was so great at that point. And no one wants to look like a dick when Posey's just killing it out there.
Yeah.
So I very much enjoyed writing for him, if anything, because maybe everyone's like, oh, you're more like the evil people because that's how Ian sounds. But in my head, I wish I could be more like Scott, or maybe I am deeper. But he was just it was fun to always kind of have that character as the moral center, no matter how crazy we got, and we talked a lot about Spider-Man and Marvel stuff because, believe it or not, again, 2012, every show wasn't a comic book show back then. So like we kind of owning that space.
Yeah.
And it was, those guys. Styles is, Dylan, especially in that No Gitsune season, really, really cranked it up. He was very powerful to watch. It was very intense on set when the drama got heated up. And then he season 4, I remember it being lighter, and I think him appreciating it more. Who else is on that show? Arden was always a good.
Yeah, she was great.
Holland, sweetheart, really fun, really nice person. Everyone was cool. Lyndon.
Oh yeah.
Hecklin. You haven't said anything about Hecklin.
Hecklin, right? Yeah.
It's like he's got to be a good guy.
It was weird because we always had trouble finding stories for him. He was always kind of separated out because I mean, I think he left season 4. Will was his last season.
Yeah, that was his last big season with us.
He was just strong actor, and every scene was just can we get his shirt off? Ladies seem to like that. Super nice dude. Everyone was really sweet, nice. Bowen. Yeah, I'm not going to trash anybody anyway. And now I'm just worried I'm leaving someone out. But, it was just like we were there every day, and it was working with all these people, and everyone was just so excited to put on a show. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. It was. Did you prefer being in the writer's room or on set?
And what's the difference? It was all in one building.
That's true. It was through one door. So.
And if you're on set, I'm just nervous that we don't have the stuff written for the test to shoot next week.
Right.
But we also had, set was easy because we had great directors, and everyone kind of knew what they were doing. And so you could just go out there and, check in, come back, check in, come back. Yeah. Katie Eastridge, our scriptie, would text me if they brought out those turkey sandwiches with the pretzel buns. Then I know I'm like, I gotta go, and I would leave the writer's room again. But yeah, I mean, nowadays it's you get to move my experience with both all the Netflix shows I've been doing. You're done writing, you're 90% done writing before you even go into production. So now you get to, I know it's
that sounds like
the
heaven.
Wistful look on Will's face.
I go out there and I'm like, it's same with Marvel too. It's like you walk through the scene, we set it up, then it's like they're gonna take an hour to set up the lights and do makeup and stuff. And I'm like, great, I will be on my iPad reading.
Oh man,
Yeah, so
that's the life. It's the fucking life.
well, you ever watch that show Justified, Will?
Oh yeah, love that show.
Think about that ending a lot. The strike ran into a lot of people I used to work with on Teen Wolf.
Yeah.
I don't see everybody now, but it's like when you match eyes with Alyssa, and I haven't seen her in 6 months. It's that end of Justified where it's
Yeah.
like we dug coal together.
We dug coal together. Yeah.
We made Teen Wolf.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
made Teen
You know
Wolf.
what, we fought in the war together. Talk about it, maybe we don't
Oh,
want to talk
God.
about it today.
Yep. I know what you mean.
What would your dream project be? Besides Bluey.
Besides Bluey.
I've just been running this so long, doing this gig so long. I really like what I'm doing right now. One Piece, I appreciate that it's a family show. I like that it's a show that everyone, I mean, I grew up watching TV with my parents. It wasn't like this insular thing like it is now where everyone has their own screen or their own iPad, and the notion that maybe this show is something that people are all watching together. There's some hacking and slashing, but 8 and up, I don't know. My 3-year-old loves it. But in terms of an actual project beyond this, I have no idea because the tone changes every week or whatever the town wants. But I am very happy doing what I'm doing now.
Excellent. That's fair.
Okay, are there any other like interesting or funny behind the scenes stories that you haven't shared yet that you'd like to share with the fans out there?
Jeez. I mean, again, it's all about like if you ask me something, I will try to recollect it as the best I can. I don't know, Will. You were there. You got any good ones? I'll try to remember the story.
Oh my
I can't
God.
remember yesterday. Yes,
I-
Yeah,
I do
the
have a-
fact that you were like, Will should help me remember, I was like, ugh.
I do have a Swiss cheese brain these days. Let me see.
I can't think of anything like super crazy, like because again, it was just like it's just a miracle the show makes any kind of coherent sense after the way we were working on it. And
I do remember when like props would come in with their interesting like toys and stuff. And I do have there was one day when they brought in the sword that Dylan would wear. So it like had like going out of his chest and out of his back, and you put it on and took a picture with it. I remember that being a lot of fun. Everybody getting pictures of that.
oh, the sword you get run through.
Where he gets run through. It looks like you've been run through. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. My favorite, anytime they were in the hospital, was my favorite thing to shoot because I would just fall asleep in one of the hospital beds and like tell Jeff I was on set. I'm just like, I'll be here when you set up. It's been it's weird. It's fun to see everybody who was on Teen Wolf, the cast, when you see them and other stuff. Shelley just did the show on Netflix that was really funny called Obliterated.
Yeah.
And you see Dylan and all pop up he was on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
That was crazy. I saw Holland. So when I went to was flying out to Africa for the first season of One Piece, I was going out there for 6 months. So like, bring your whole family. So bring my wife who's pregnant, 2 kids. And I managed to watch like one movie on the flight, and it was Escape Room 2 maybe.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, there's Holland. And then when I get there and land, my first day on set, I saw they filmed it at where we were shooting One Piece.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the
Fun.
train cars were there. But it was such a huge cast. People pop up all the time. I know Arden's on The Last Airbender, I think now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, crazy behind the scenes stories is just it just was what it was. It was an insane ride. And it's
Yes, it
hard to
was.
sound like I don't even know if I'm selling it or I'm just getting wistful in my old age.
Wistful is good. Wistful is
But
good.
I mean, like again, if anyone's the TV writers listening, it was just I remember the thing you kind of gotta, if you really are committed to this job, it's just like you have your brains on 24/7, and that's how my brain has always kind of worked. Like sometimes I do my best thinking on the drive home or in the shower or walking around, and always, you needed 100 ideas a day on this show. and maybe 20 of them worked and went somewhere. And it was just, it was the kind of brain exercise that I couldn't handle for much longer. And and when Netflix Marvel came calling, I sort of said adieu. But it was an incredible experience, and I don't think I'll ever work on a show like that again. Besides the massive episode count, just the fact that we had such free creative reign up there, and we also had some of the top talent because we got this huge LA tax credit. And believe it or not, there wasn't a whole lot shooting in LA at that time. There had been a lot of pull from Atlanta and Vancouver. There still is, but there was kind of a renaissance in the last 10 years. And we had, our props guy, or our props woman worked on the X-Files. Our practical effects guys, the guys who blow things up, had done CSI Miami, so they were always down to blow anything up. Russell Mulcahy, our supervising director, he had, directed Highlander.
Yeah.
And Dave Daniels, our DP. We had so many amazing people on that show, top talent, and they were all bringing their A game just because, it was a fun show to make.
Yeah. It was an embarrassment of riches, our
Yeah.
casting crew.
So how would you say that Teen Wolf has impacted your writing style?
Honestly, there are cues that with Netflix and the Marvel shows, they were very different. They were trying to be slower and more adult, and I had to sort of dial myself down from Teen Wolf, where the plan was to just keep the adrenaline going. And there was also that thing where no one seemed to tell us, do you want it slow? Do you want it fat? Like, what is the show? And then on One Piece, Netflix, that was when they started caring if people were actually watching shows they're spending all the money on. So it was fun. It's fun to flex some of those muscles again, where it's like, let's hit the ground running. Let's have a big action scene to suck you in. All the things we sort of talked about on network TV, which was on Warehouse too, which is like, we could be canceled at any minute, so the episode better be exciting. And now that Netflix is reporting ratings and seems to care, we're very much back into the idea of like, the audience engagement, which Jeff was a big proponent on. He wanted big openings, crazy teasers. We knew where our act outs were, which isn't necessarily a thing on Netflix anymore, but it has been interesting to use some of those skills again. And I think the team on One Piece, a lot of them had come from network TV or cable, and we all kind of have those skills back again. And it's been exciting, and it's been rewarding too, because the audience seems to really be enjoying watching the show.
Fantastic. All that matters, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, in addition to writing for Teen Wolf, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and One Piece, you also executive produce those projects. So what does that role entail, especially on Teen Wolf?
I mean, it's just a fancy way of saying they have to keep promoting you every year. But it's just it just means, I'm on set, I'll go to post, I'll do whatever I can to help out. But again, one of the, if you're showrunner, then the guy I'm working for now, Matt Owens, he has a strong vision. So did Jeff. And it's just, my goal isn't to force my vision on it, is to try to help with his vision. And, we have a clear line of communication, and I think I know what he wants or what Jeff wanted. And then, try to deliver that. Because again, no one man can be anywhere at once. So, it's about trying to help them out and facilitate that vision. I don't know. It's, again, I just kind of hang around and do it. But mostly, again, I'm a writer, and I long prefer to stay in the writer's room. There's lots of departments and things people like doing. I hate meetings. I'm so bored in them. I never want to take a phone call again. I just want to, I'm like, if the scripts are done, everyone else can figure it out. And that's I'm pretty much in the writer's room full time at One Piece until I have to go to Africa.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right.
It's a lot. It's so many meetings. Well, it's just
And I
meetings.
remember them all. It's
I'm
like
just
every
why do I have to be in this meeting? There's 100 people here. You guys figure it. Come to me if you have a question or a problem, but I got stuff to do.
So Teen Wolf has such a passionate fan base, and you moved into the Marvelverse and One Piece, which also have quite the following. Do you have any memorable fan interactions that you'd like to share?
No, I don't. I don't really. I will say it's fun when you see somebody back when Team Up was on. You see somebody with like a Beacon Hill sweatshirt or whatever, and that was kind of cool. Or with One Piece, you see One Piece stuff everywhere. Same with Marvel. I'm not. I barely know how to use a computer or the internet. I'm not really on this stuff. And as will attest, Will had to do most of my tech stuff for me. Now I've got a new kid at One Piece, so I'm driving nuts. I don't know how to do anything. But the internet does nothing for me. I love when I meet somebody who watched the show and they want to talk about it. Like, cool. It's always just fun to see people who are excited by it. And I know Teen Wolf had well, I will say, okay, here's a story. I was there the first time in season 3, the first time we shot at the high school in the Palisades, which is we shot at a real high school for some exterior high school stuff. We didn't do it much because when we got there, there were like 1,000 kids standing around, and I was like, how many extras did we hire? And they were like, no, these are just kids who found out we're shooting Teen Wolf, and it's like the Beatles had shown up because that was like, and I thought this was a Canadian show a month ago. I had no idea this was like as popular as it was. And so it was cool, and it was exciting to see people that were engaged with the show. But I'm a private man. Well, what can I say?
Well, Kate and Calissa were probably some of those fans. So
Yeah, you girls came out.
I have a memorable fan experience with Ian.
Oh yeah.
We were at like one of the watch parties, and I don't know what was even saying, but like Alyssa and Ian were there, and I said something to Ian about him thinking like a crazy fangirl, and he's like, "Oh, I don't think about you at all," and Alyssa just burst out laughing.
That was probably in one of I was thinking of Peter's stories. Fun evil character, right? No, I mean, again, it's people are passionate about it, and it's healthy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And One Piece is a whole nother world that it's just too. I didn't know much about the fan base or the manga really until that call came, and it's so overwhelming because it's like bigger than Harry Potter, like possibly or globally, that I'm just like, I'm not even dipping my toe into that water.
Fair enough.
I haven't done one of these podcasts since I think there was since Teen Wolf, and that's been what, over 10 years, 14, 12 years now at this point?
Almost. We are getting up there. It is rough.
Well, thank you for gracing us with your presence, though. We do
Yeah.
appreciate you coming out of podcast retirement for us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't have any more. My brain don't work so good no more, guys. I've done a lot of TV
No,
shows
you've been
since
so
then.
fun to talk
No,
to.
this has
I
been-
do
this is
remember
like
more about Teen Wolf than like Iron Fist. Iron Fist, I couldn't tell you much about. That one's a blank slate.
Yeah.
It was
Do
a
you
fun time. I remember.
repress
I
it, or-
couldn't tell you. I'm not even sure I remember the characters' names at this point.
Iron and Fist,
Iron
Mr.
Fist.
Iron Fist.
Iron J Fist. Yeah.
That's how it
Yeah.
works. That's how it
Please,
works.
Iron
You know
J
what else was
Fist is his
cool? And I'm just going to
father.
mention this.
Yeah.
This great was Sprayberry, Dylan Sprayberry. That was so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
I remember he was Liam, right? Like the
Mhm.
next generation Teen Wolf, and because the year before he had been Little Clark Kent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so all the time I used to just grab him on set and just say, "You are my son."
That's a good Kevin Costner. I like that.
Amazing.
He didn't appreciate it, but I did.
Oh, that was gonna be my next question. Did he love it? So now I know.
No, he
But
really
he was
loved it.
those were cool. He was a cool kid, and like I remember his whole family had he was an emancipated minor because he was like 16, right?
Yeah, he was
Means
the
like
only teen.
he divorced his parents, but his parents were still, that was just so he could work more hours. Like his
Yeah.
parents were there. They were the nicest people in the world. And his sister was an actress too. She was always hanging out. And it was just like watching this like lovable nuclear family of in Hollywood, which just everyone just seems it just seems like such a horrible thing to be
Yeah.
a child actor. But they made it seem like maybe I'll throw my kids into the gauntlet there.
Yeah, exactly.
I do
Yeah.
remember having dinner once on set with, I think Arden was there and like Dylan Sprayberry's sister, who must have been like 14 or 15. And I don't know, she was talking, she's, boy, did you know that Josh Schwartz had a show before Gossip Girl called The OC? And I'm just like, yes, of course. And I'm like, I realized like, my God, I'm like 35. And and so like, again, yes, the thing about the kids is like, you just forget, like, you know, it's because some of them were actually children.
Yeah.
What Dylan, I mean, Posey was like in his 20s, I guess.
Yeah,
and
he was
Dylan-
early 20s, but Sprayberry was like the only teen we had on our teen show. He was a
Mhm.
he was a baby. He was a baby.
Yeah, I just feel like I didn't mention him, and he's a nice kid.
Oh, he's a great kid. He's a great kid. You mentioned One Piece. How would you compare working on Teen Wolf to something like Warehouse 13 or One Piece?
You know, like I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever. If you want to know what Teen Wolf was like, there's a book. I was reading Roger Corman's book. He just died,
Mhm.
and it's just like a guy who just would shoot a movie he had like 10 grand or 25 grand and just go out there and shoot a movie. And his plan was no one will bother me. And it just sounds like chaos and all sorts of roles. And his whole thing was to try to buck away from the studio system.
Right.
And I will never be a part of anything that was farther away from the studio system than Teen Wolf. It was incredibly hands off creatively. And again, so it was chaos, but it was a good kind of chaos. I don't even think we ever got notes from a network executive, or I mean, we barely talked to them. They just took the credit. They were just happy for it.
Yeah.
And now, you know, I remember going to Marvel after my first like week at Iron Fist, like work was done at 6 p.m. and I went home and I was home at like 6:10 because it was first of all, the office was like right by my house. It's fantastic. I'm just thinking, I don't have any hobbies. Like, I'm not used to being off work at like 6 p.m. I have no idea what to do with myself. But you know, some of those madness skills, because it was a hit successful show, and it was we started getting really good notices around like season 3 or 4 from, I remember Entertainment Weekly named us like the show of the week one time. I think it was the season 4 premiere, and everybody was, you know, passing that magazine. There used to be these things called magazines.
Oh, cool.
and everyone was really, you know, excited and happy. And it just sort of proved to us that for all the hard work we're doing, we might be doing something right. But again, the idea that nothing's more important than engaging the audience. And I feel like after a long run of very slow television, we're getting back to doing the work and coming up with exciting, engaging TV again.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have thought about, well, how would I do this on Teen Wolf, a little bit on One Piece? If One Piece fans are watching this, it's not going to be the same thing. Don't worry. But you know, it's been it was a hell of a ride.
Yeah, it absolutely was. It absolutely was.
I will say working in Northridge does have its appeal again now that I have to fly out to South Africa again pretty soon.
Yeah.
For another, I think I'm only there for a couple of months, but it was fun, you know, shooting something here in LA too, which it's not, you can go your whole career without shooting anything in this town.
Yeah.
But it's kind of that fun Hollywood experience you might never get again. Haven't shot in LA.
Oh wow. All right.
Yeah.
All right then.
Were there any scenes or ideas you remember pitching that didn't end up happening? Any plot lines or anything?
No, I do. I was into the mythology of the Wild Hunt, and I remember pitching that a lot because I'd wanted to do, I think season 4 kind of, Jeff had a better idea. I wanted to do like something like the Goblet of Fire with the Harry Potter movie where they're in the contest.
Mhm.
And I'd sort of thought about that as an arc for season 4. And I was fleshing out in my head And then Jeff came in with the Deadpool, and I was like, oh, let's just do that. That'll be way easier. We can start writing that tomorrow. I'm like, that's an assassin every week. I'm like, good, because again, we start shooting in 2 weeks. But then I think the Wild Hunt kind of showed up again, right? Did it?
Yeah,
Was that
season
part of
5.
it? Yeah, I never. So you know, I grew up reading a lot of these. My school library had these Time Life supernatural encyclopedias, and I remember reading all this stuff. And then when I burned through, I thought I had burned through everything on Warehouse 13, and then I found a few more things I liked. But I can't think of anything that I can't remember the things that got made, to be honest. That's far off.
If you could be any Teen Wolf creature, what would you be?
Gosh, geez, I don't even. What did we have? We had I remember the Wendigos. They were cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like they were just cannibals, and that feels like an Ian pitch where it was like Lydia like Lydia opens up their back and they just got a meat drawer full of human meat. That yeah. What other creatures did we have? Wendigos. There is a the No Gitsune was a really cool design. But what creature would I be? I'll just be a werewolf, and my chest hair will go away. Will come out.
That's how it works.
It all just migrates into sideburns.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
So
Yeah, we had
Werewolf.
the first werewolf show with no body hair.
The way we do it.
Less shirts. Oh, what were those big things?
The Berserkers.
Yeah, the Berserkers. They were
Yeah.
Oh
cool.
my god.
Yeah, they were great.
We had the biggest actor doing that. That guy was huge.
Yeah, he was like
Yeah.
6.5 feet tall or 7 feet tall. He was huge.
Can you walk us through your writing process for an episode, like how to go from initial concept to final script? And that if you don't want to talk about Teen Wolf anymore, you could talk about One Piece. Whatever
Well, like I
works.
said, Teen Wolf was a lot of times me and Jeff in the middle of the night
just
writing in like a gym or the office. Well, Will followed us around
With a
taking-
laptop.
trying to translate our blather into pages of dialogue.
Yeah.
That's how I remember it. Is that right, Will?
That is accurate. No,
Yeah.
because Jeff loves to work out. And if he's like stuck, he's like, let's go work out. And then he'll get a whole bunch of ideas while he's doing bench presses or something. And yeah.
Then we just act out the scenes. And it was madness.
Yeah, it was.
You know, with well, again, if it does help to know, and I'll say this for any writer, if you ever get in a room or you know, you prepare, is like, you know, when your name's on the board and it's going to be your turn to come up. And I think it's like, it behooves you to sort of come in strong. I always try to, if I know I'm up tomorrow and it's my episode, I start thinking about what's my cool opening? What's my through line? How can this thing break out on a board? And, you know, I generally spend about a week talking through it with the writer's room. Now I'm sort of at a level where I'm doing it with helping all the other writers with their episodes too. But you know, it's and then get the outline written, which, you know, in Teen Wolf and most shows, I prefer to write very detailed outlines because then I can just plug in, because then I can take 2 weeks off and write the script the night before. No, it's but you know, the one thing, again, TV is a collaborative medium. I've never worked alone. I'm always talking to people, interacting with people, finding things in the stories, and I don't just sit down and write. When I just sit down and write by myself, but I mean, like the whole process has always been collaborative.
Yeah.
And it's the best job in the world, to be honest, because it's I have no real skills other than just bullshitting all day.
Well, those skills have paid off.
I can change a diaper now.
Oh, well, hey,
hey,
there
that's
you
an
go.
important skill.
Yeah,
There
who
you
needs
go.
hobbies when you have 3 kids, right?
Exactly.
The girl diapers are a little harder to do. The third one's a girl. And that was a whole new set of equipment.
Yeah, I have a niece. She's 9 months, and I still haven't. I got one supervised diaper change, and I was like, "No, this is too complicated. I'm out."
Not me. I've been elbow deep in human waste for like 5 years now. Nothing scares me. Nothing shocked me.
You can do anything now.
Who in the Teen Wolf cast or crew would make the best alpha?
Oh, Posey. I mean, he was the alpha. He was yeah, I never got sick of writing for that kid. And again, it was just when you're number one on the call sheet, it's an awesome responsibility. And he handled it with such grace and skill. And he was always, even on days off, he'd show up. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? I don't get days off. Like, go but he loved it. He loved every minute of it. And that again, that infectious spirit just trickles down.
Yeah.
Makes the whole thing worth doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Although also honorable mention for Holland because she's an alpha too.
Nice. Nice. Ian, are there any upcoming projects you can tell us about? Other than I guess maybe One Piece.
Yeah, I got One Piece season 2. I don't know when it'll be on. Hasn't been filmed yet.
Gotcha.
Start shooting soon. And One Piece season 1 is on Netflix. I highly recommend everybody in the world watch it because
Yes.
it could be a good gig for me for a few more years.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm doing.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, man, thank you so much for joining us for this stroll down memory lane. It was great.
Yes,
It was
thank you.
fantastic seeing
Yeah,
you after
thank
so
you.
long, man. Really appreciate
We dug
it.
coal together, Will.
We dug coal. I can't believe we're using that for Teen Wolf, but I love it. I want that forever now. So yeah,
We do it all the time.
yeah, we dug coal. Awesome. All right, man. Well, you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Yes.
All right, buddy.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
girls. Bye, Will.